Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Professor Hamamoto. It is December 29th, year 2022, soon to become year 2023. This will be the last live stream and cast for the current year, and it represents roughly almost to the day. I think it was Christmas Eve just a few days ago. It was my 2-year anniversary of being here on Tube U, and it's 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Welcome, one and all. I've been eagerly anticipating this talk today. I've been working on it consistently for, I don't know, you might say years and years, but for this particular session, it's been more like, I don't know, a month, maybe a month or two. And then the more I dug, the more my um, hypotheses, let's call them, working hypotheses, were confirmed about the esoteric meaning of the Pasadena Tournament of Roses. Why am I wearing this hat? Well, it's going to be the new year, and it's a tribute to my ancestors who were gangsters from the Asian part of the world, Okinawa in one side of the family and Japan in the other. And the reason I mention this is because my bloodlines are very much related to what is now known as the Pasadena Tournament of Roses. In fact, I'll tell you right up front that without my bloodline, there would be no Pasadena Tournament of Roses. There would be no modern, in America, cut flower industry. There was a huge market that's still there, by the way, in Los Angeles, which was pioneered by Issei, that is immigrant people. Anyway, I'll get into in a moment. And this answers a little bit in advance as why someone like me, who, by the way, is a third generation American, would be interested in the Rose Bowl. Well, I'm connected to it historically, existentially, just as you are. All right. There's another practical meaning because the story of my people who were taken away, expropriated, written out of the history, and their industry was hijacked and stolen is very much related to California politics of 2023, where the resources, namely water, has been hijacked by one family in particular, which I'll talk about. And it was done with public funding through the cooperation of my previous employer, the University of California, Davis in specific, and other institutions of higher education, which have conspired with the agricultural industry. I'm talking about the mega agriculture, not the small farmer. I'm talking about corporations, agribusiness, and including the cut flower business. And its public face is, guess what? The Pasadena Tournament of Roses, because everybody loves roses, do they not? Remember, the rose, the rose bush has thorns as well, and we're going to talk about some of the thorny issues that are involved with the Pasadena Tournament of Roses, including racial purity, right? Not just forced removal and mass internment of populations. I mean, we can start with Native America, the Gabrielinos. Pasadena itself is a native word. I think it means the valley. And if you could check back in my playlist, I talked about the California mission system, upon which the different centers of commerce and education, most UCs are standing where former missions were exploiting or expropriating the land and working the native people free of charge. It's called slavery, right? And of course, Spanish were involved, Mexican, and then came these Anglo-Saxon domination. And then we might be entering a new phase, the dread Chicoms are going to take over America, right? Yeah, this is what we're hearing from the Fear Ranger, Mike Adams, and his employer, Alex Jones, and their employers, of course, right, who are whipping up the frenzy of people being locked up, being welded into their apartments or being enslaved with the social credit score and all this hype. And it's incessant. And this is coming from people who should know better, people who are supposedly indie journalism. And I'm mentioning this because the Pasadena Tournament of Roses is going to undergo a significant transformation, just like the country is belatedly, with the realities of the rise of not the rise, they're already here. The rise started in the 50s, right? We got the first hint of it with the ascendancy of Japan in the 1970s through 80s, and then South Korea, and more recently, China, the People's Republic of China. And that's going to be reflected by, I'm making a prediction right here before 2023 is even here. The next Rose Queen, right, who's selected, there's a pageant, right? I won't go into it. That's a whole story in itself. And it's very much related to the cultivation of roses and hybrids, racial purity, racial hybridity, animal, fauna, and flora cultivation, right? Does that sound familiar? Yeah, it also relates to the history of American eugenics, which we exported to Germany, right, during the Weimar period, and it was later adopted almost lock, stock, and barrel by the Third Reich, and it hasn't gone away. That's why I, in my title today, cleverly described the hegemonic rule by Royal Society, biophysics, or bioeugenics, synthetic biology. And what we have been seeing for 132 years, there has been exceptions, right? During the bombing of Pearl Harbor, again, the yellow peril threatens at the gates of the Pacific Empire in the United States of America. Right, get them out of here, keep them away, keep them at bay. But you know what? They're already here. Some of the wealthiest residents of San Marino and in the San Gabriel Valley are, guess what? They are Chacams. They are Chinitos, right? The Chinitos is what the Mexicans called the Chinamen who they killed in Old Pasadena. There was an Anglo Mexican American attack on old Chinatown. There's a new Chinatown in Los Angeles, but the older one is in Pasadena, and any number of Chinamen were murdered, were killed. And I'm mentioning this because we're still living, not just theoretically, not just historically, not just academically, we're still living with the fallout of this tortured history of roses, right? Our own struggle to reconcile seemingly alien species and alien political ideologies. And we're seeing that I must still be in the African American elite sorority mode, because I'm carrying on like a Southern Baptist preacher. Anyway, that's by the way, the Black community in Pasadena historically was met with a lot of hostility, even though people like, you might not remember his name, but Jackie Robinson, the man who broke the color line in Major League Baseball, let's not forget his brother, Mac Robinson. They were from Pasadena. I think they went to, I think it was Muir High School. You know, excellence. It's an incredible city. Don't get me wrong. Okay, Pasadena has a very deep history of all the different groups coming together. But I'm going to be, and I'm mentioning this because I'm going to be tending to focus on the elites that have controlled it from the beginning to present, even though they put faces on the queens, right? That's why the next queen will be probably Chinese, because this is their attempt to present a hybrid reconciliation of the primacy of China within the U.S. economy and society that we're undergoing right now. In fact, I think it was a couple of years ago, the first Jewish Rose Queen was crowned, and Pasadena has almost had not large. Most Jews in LA are living on the west side or in the San Fernando Valley. And I say that because Pasadena has always been the bastion of the white Anglo-Saxon people, the WASP, the Protestant, more specifically, the Congregationalist or Presbyterian establishment. But there are wealthy Jews who lived in Pasadena. But the first, she's not from Pasadena proper. She's from San Marino, which is upscale. It's right next to Pasadena, but it's for wealthy people. And so she was the first person of of a Jewish background who, let me see what her name is here, who was crowned after, decades of having, yeah, her name was Louise Siskel, and she was this is 2 years ago, the 130th tournament of Rose Parade. And she was also the first LGBTQ member. And she was also the first Rose Queen to wear glasses. So they 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 had three check marks, right? Off. Okay, we got rid of the glasses taboo, we got rid of the Jewish taboo, we got rid of the LGBT queer taboo. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that the 2023 will be a chinita, right? This is what people who speak Espanol refer to us. Even me, I'm referred to as a chinito because, as every Asian person is Chinese. I'm kidding. Let's take a look at some of the beauty queens from the past, right? Here on the far left, she was 1907. I don't have her name handy, and then she's literally a queen. She's got the crown and everything, and the royal regalia just kind of retreats over the years to its today in 2023, 22. It's more of a vestigial reminder that we're talking about elite power in society. And more specifically, I'm talking about the elite power that comes from the old world, right? The British Isles, Germany to a certain extent, but Scotland, England, certainly, because it goes way before the settlement of migrants from the state of Indiana. They started their own colony in Pasadena, but that was already late. This is 1875, around there, and they were all from Indiana. And the reason I mentioned the Midwestern origins is because, as we're finding out now, it's not all about New York City, and it's not all about LA. The great American Midwest, right? It's going to be hotly contested and fought for in the 21st century, especially the farmland and those resources there, which are being grabbed up now, and not by the Chacoms only. Okay, all right. It's just like I alluded to earlier. The water resources have already been sold off to a family, and they're privately held. And that's going to be another talk, by the way. But I'm just telling you that the rose is a symbol for a larger power of a larger constellation or system of power. So let me just very briefly, because there's a lot of work that had to go into this process, this culmination of 2 years of work, research, and original thought, because that's one of my objectives here. I want to explode the orthodox history, the academic orthodox history, as well as the repetitious material that circulates in YouTube land amongst so-called independent researchers. And they call themselves researchers, but I call them repeaters, right? These are the people that just keep talking over and over about the sexy Nazis. They're either talking about the sexy Nazis or the sexy UFOs, right? And by the way, you're going to get both here, right? Because, I will tell you, right? And I'm going to mention his name once, and you're not going to hear it again in this talk. Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, yes. Immediately, you think you know where this talk is going, but this is the only time I'm going to mention either of those characters, and they have a close connection to Pasadena, California, and so does Madame Blavatsky. But that's not this talk. This is the talk of the Papa pundits. All right. Sorry to get all worked up, but I don't like to be put in that same trick bag. Not that I'm better, but I'm qualitatively in a different world, both in the academic world and the so-called indie world that just is obsessed by UFOs and Nazis. All right. And this is not just a competitive urge on my part. My insights are going to help us avert extinction or severe genetic modification. That's why I call it biophysics, bioeugenics. These people are not putzing around. Look up putz. It's Yiddish, right? My name is, for 2023, I'm going to get over, like Whoopi Goldberg, Karen Johnson. So I'm now Shlomo Hamamoto. Okay, let me just show you a brief panoramic vision of Pasadena. For those of you who are not familiar with it, you might only know the parade, which is fine. This is not a history about the parade or the Jet Propulsion Laboratory or Caltech, although I will allude to it in a moment. Just hang on. Do not jump to conclusions. Let's take a look at Pasadena for people who don't have um, even a basic understanding of what we're talking. This is the mapping of it, literally. Here we go.
The city of Pasadena, California is 10 miles north of Los Angeles. It is a city known for its New Year's Rose Parade, which brings in around 1 million visitors along the parade route, while tens of millions of viewers watch it on TV. The parade starts at the corner of Orange Grove and Colorado, and this is also the general location of Wrigley Mansion. This mansion was donated to the Tournament of Roses by chewing gum multi-millionaire William Wrigley Jr. This area of South Orange Grove Boulevard is known as Millionaire's Row because it's lined by exclusive residences which are worth as much as the name implies. A nearby private school located in a beautiful, spacious location serves those who can afford it. The Norton Simon Museum serves as a home for important art pieces from famous artists such as Picasso and Van Gogh. The Gamble House, which belonged to another consumer product magnate, David of Gamble of Procter & Gamble, sits along Orange Grove. As we continue east on Orange Grove, there's a change of view. There's no likelihood of encountering multi-million-dollar houses along this way. In fact, Millionaire's Row is replaced by other neighborhood names such as Snake Pit, The Projects, or The Hood. This area of Northwest Pasadena seems thousands of miles apart from the exclusive, historic, and opulence of North and South Orange Grove Boulevard. Things here do not resemble what it is normal for the north side. But although there is no smell of roses along this path,
Does that iconology refresher? That's the Virgen de Guadalupe, because Millionaire Rose turns into the Hood, the projects, and now it's turning into, mi barrio, right? It's the part of the Latinization of Los Angeles in general. So that's the sort of the divided world of contemporary Pasadena. So we're going to just review a couple of quick facts here, just to substantiate my claim that we're looking at an occult ritual on a mass level. All right. You've seen all the copycat videos about how the halftime show on Beyonce and Madonna is a Baphomet. You've seen all that. But has anybody really considered the Rose Parade and even the Rose Bowl, the contest of these gladiatorial teams, UCLA or USC from the Pac-10 and the Midwestern teams clashing together? I don't know who's playing this year. Stanford is a participant, from year to year as well. All the big time schools, and this was the first college bowl, from what I can understand. Maybe some of the current ones have replaced it in terms of viewership, but the Tournament of Roses estimate. This is from the Tournament of Roses committee itself, which, by the way, is housed in the said Wrigley Mansion. Did you catch that? Wrigley Mansion, as in the chewing gum, as in Wrigley Field in Chi-Town? Yeah, the historic ballpark. And there used to be one in LA, by the way. My dad used to take me there to see the Los Angeles Angels. Yes, the California Angels started out on the professional league. They used to be a farm team, a Pacific Coast League or something, but they became an American League, MLB, Major League Baseball, in Los Angeles, and they played at Wrigley Field in Los Angeles. So there was two Wrigley Fields. I think it might have been taken before they moved to Anaheim. They built a new state, which we moved to. I don't know if it was following. Then they became the California Angels, and just a little bit of story there. So I have fond memories of going to Wrigley Field in Los Angeles with my dad. He was a baseball nut. And also to the LA Coliseum. That's where the Dodgers That was their home field before they moved over to Chavez Ravine, today's contemporary, current LA Dodgers. And I remember seeing on the TV all the Mexican families being carried out physically out of Chavez or just carted away because the O'Malley family, this is where our stadium's going to be. So we can get rid of the Mexicans, right? This is part of the expropriation process that we're seeing time and time again. And I mentioned this not out of as a historical curiosity, but we here, 2023, we are in the process of being biologically expropriated in ways that I don't even need to detail, but I'm going to provide you the historical backdrop by which we came to this point, and it centers upon the city of Pasadena. Yes, indeed. So that's the Wrigley Mansion. Okay, you had 45 million viewers nationally, right? They're sitting at home. I'm not going to be one of them. I'll be, probably reading or studying or listening to music or playing music, whatever. And around the world, 28 million viewers. So there's a lot of energy focused on this one particular pinpoint on planet Earth, right? And we know what that accumulate that's ritual energy, and it's harvested. Okay, so you're getting your jollies, eating your Cheetos or whatever it is, and drinking your Coors beer. I mentioned Coors specifically because their politics, right? But you get the point here. It's the focal. It's the focus of these illuminist bloodlines here, who are presenting a public spectacle for us to be amused by, while at the same time harvesting our energy and advancing and consolidating their own strength, their own social power, their own political economic base, right? That is the function of a ritual. And this is annual, right? It's a renewal. It's a reconstitution. It's a revisiting a reminder, as well as an advancement of this bloodline power that extends centuries into the midst of the high medieval period, right? I'm not making up Harry Potter type information or C.S. Lewis. I'm talking about information that I'm extracting from, quote unquote, academic source. Let me just tell you, okay, this is not YouTube stuff. This material that I've been reading in preparation for this. Margaret C. Jacob, The Secular Enlightenment, which will talk in depth about some of the historical features of the Rose Parade that I can only skim across. And this is Princeton University. It's a university press. Excellent book, published very recently. And the other reason I'm name checking these people, 2019. That's a really good sign. The reason why I'm bringing up these books here is because the academic world is finally recognizing what I was talking about in 2005 as New World Order theory. Not that they know who I am, but I could already see the direction that the university was taking us as a society. All right, they were going to queer society, and that's where the whole LGBTQ mafia was installed. Remember, I was there. I was living this, right, professionally. So I witnessed it, and I was remarking on it. And what finally came down was no surprise to me. It's all been part of a large-scale biosocial engineering project, including the sterilization of the human species, a lot of which came out of Caltech, by the way, California Institute of Technology. And you know this? Yeah, it's housed in Pasadena, California. I'll get back to that in a moment. And also so-called critical race theory, which was also dealing with issues of displacement, which I led this talk about, the mass removal of Native people, of Mexicans, of Orientals, because before the Japanese, they got rid of the Chinitos, the Chinese, right? And attacked their communities. So we're seeing the gradual emergence or even mainstreaming, which I've been trying to encourage. This is why I've been teaching New World Order theory at the University of California, Davis since 2005, because I wanted to, number one, advance my profession and say, we need to look at the esoteric foundations of America, the occult foundations of the political economic system of the United States of America. And unless we understand it, unless we come to grips with it, we're going to be sitting in the spin cycle moralizing about, gee, all we have to do is follow the Bill of Rights and the founding fathers, blah, 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 woof, woof. Right. And also, there's all these different solutions and quick fixes here, but no one really in the academic world is starting to happen. But even these people do not understand the politics of the occult and how it pervades every single institution, including our science institutions, and guides it, which has resulted in what I call this biophysics hegemonic. That means total biophysics hegemonic rule. And it stems from the Royal Society. Yes, it's very much an Anglo-Saxon Scottish power block that's for centuries now has been very much threatened by the Orient, by the East. These are the metaphysical origins of anti-Asian, anti-Oriental fear. It's called xenophobia, and it's been its most acute expression in the Western states of California, Washington, Oregon. Right. So those of you who are from the Midwest and the East Coast, you might not know what I'm talking about. Just like you didn't know what a Latino was until recently, until the whole huge mass migration started coming in. So I'm just trying to break it down for you. Even people who live here don't really fully understand it, right? Even people who were born and raised in California. But that's changed because of people like me who have brought it into the curriculum, right? At K through 12 in the university curriculum, but also beyond that, I'm also putting it into our survival kit as human beings of all ethnicities, of all religious backgrounds, because I say there is a biophysics attack on the human species, and is embodied esoterically in the Rose Parade and the Tournament of Roses. I mean, the very term tournament itself has martial overtones, M-A-R-T-I-A-L, military overtones, just like the Surgeon General has military overtones, because you know what? It does come from the military. That's why the Surgeon General wears a uniform and he or she has rank, right? Even though they never wielded a gun. So we're talking about a military operation. And by that, I don't mean it metaphorically. I don't mean just the U.S. Army. I'm talking about the Knights Templar, baby. I'm talking about the Rose+Croix. I'm talking about the KKK. All right. Anyway, let me finish up the stats here. Well, you got the idea. There's a huge focus on Pasadena at this time of year. We already talked about the Wrigley, the chewing gum guy, right? This Pasadena is also one of the power bases of the people who are considered to be the founders, the Anglo founders of Los Angeles. You know that the European founders of it were Spanish. They were not from the British Isles. And we know about the indigenous people. By the way, I grew up in the California public school system. We studied that history. We studied California history. We studied the Yangtze Indians in Los Angeles, and we went to the museums, and our teachers were great and we talked about all the different. This is way before multicultural. The only reason why multicultural came in is because that was the weaponized form that we had already were learning organically from our wonderful teachers who had not been converted or forced to leftist post-human GLBT and CRT orthodoxy at the schools of education at UCLA or Columbia or at Berkeley. All right. This is when they were able to back then teach their classes as they wanted to, not be what the teachers union and NATO and the United Nations and UNESCO was ordering them to do. Right. And that's another reason why I'm exploding the orthodoxy with this New World Order theory, using the Rose Parade as a popular example of all these principles that I've been unlocking over the past couple decades now, since 2005. After I came back from sabbatical, that means 7, right? Sabbath. Watch my earlier talking about Rabbi Jonathan Kahn talks about Shemitah, the 7 cycles. So yeah, I was a beneficiary of the 7 cycles. I went to Okinawa, which is where my bloodline originates. And I got to really assess myself, my career, my profession, and my intellectual tradition. And when I came back to the US to resume my duties at University of California, Davis, I threw away my syllabus. I threw away my graduate degree. I said, I'm starting over. I'm developing New World Order theory, and I'm going to develop a methodology and spread it to the world, right? Including the next generation of journalists, writers, artists, intellectuals, film directors, sculptors, attorneys, teachers, right? That is the notion of the sensei, right? The first character is sen is uh, before, that which comes before, like cross generations. Sei means sex, generativity. So sensei is more than a teacher, it's someone who passes this information, experience, and epigenetics generationally and across even any groups that want to pick up on it. That's the true metaphysical meaning of the term sensei. So do not abuse it, because the sensei in Japanese and East Asian culture, the Chinese as well, and Korean especially. I don't know about the Southeast Asian. I think in Vietnam it's still very strong. These are the people that the rest of society and the culture and even the banksters, they're the ones that are listened to. They have to hold the highest respect. It's not just a status deal. It's because these other groups understand that their whole survival as a society is dependent upon the understanding of all these different elements that holds together a community, a society, a culture. That's what the Rapinette is about. It's not unique to any one group. And I mention this is because this is being destroyed here in America purposely. So guess what? Why is it being destroyed? It's being destroyed by these people, right? The ones who have this esoteric knowledge and parade it literally once a year in front of our faces while we're smashing the Cheetos in our face and washing it down with Coors beer and watching the spectacle of giant behemoths who are on steroids. Hopefully they won't drop dead at the prime of life, right? It's called the Rose Bowl. All right, let me get back on track here. And by the way, the Rose Bowl, which is in the Arroyo Seco Valley, does that ring a bell? That's where Jack Parsons and Albert Molina, all those Rocketeers, that's where they were they were experimenting with their rudimentary technology there. I'm not okay. That's I already mentioned his name once, but I'm just trying to provide you a little bit of background here. So we're talking about a civic occult ritual. It's a bioritual, right? And I'll expand on that as I go on here. Now that this not really much has been written about Los Angeles in an accurate way. I think the first book that came to my attention and that was written in my time, because they had Carrie McWilliams writing before that, and other writers. Kenneth Starr wrote a little bit about LA, California, but the first person in contemporary times that seemed to have a handle what Los Angeles was really about was Mike Davis. This is 1990, City of Quartz, but he was doing it from a leftist perspective. So he was talking from like a classic new left Marxian analysis, right? Capital versus labor. But unfortunately, reality is far more nuanced than the sort of even new Marxist like Mike Davis. He wrote for the New Left Review, by the way, which was the top neo-Marxist journals, at least at the time, out of London, right? And in addition to being a journalist, and then, he eventually got an academic job, I think at UC Riverside or something like that. But incredible book, but no one has done it like I have. All right. And you can keep looking. And I was racking my brains to see if anybody's been doing this, but no one has. All right, I already told you why, but let me just clarify again why someone like me, who doesn't look like one of the members of the Pasadena Tournament of Roses committee, because it is very waspish even now. It's like very wriggly. It's very Presbyterian. It's like a New England town with better, Mediterranean weather. Not better, but you know what I mean. It doesn't snow. It has rained on occasion, but it doesn't snow. Again, I'll mention it because existentially it relates to me. People from Japan were making pilgrimages to Rome. By 1550, they had already been to Rome, trying to visit the Pope a couple times. That's a long time ago. Because we got the weeaboos who are still in control of popular perceptions, right? Your Quentin Tarantino types, or you got people who cast Keanu Reeves as the all-purpose Asian guy, Asianistic, right? Because it's too threatening to have a full-blown Semitic person doing all the mystical Far East Oriental rules. So we'll get Keanu Reeves because he's kind of Asianistic. And that's how I interpret it, sort of a bulwark against the great Semitic paranoia and fears of the movie making community, because those are the people over on the other side of the Pacific are the only ones that really fear and and they call them the Yellow Peril. It goes back to the Mongol invasions when they were running through Hazaria and they enslaved the Hazarians. Okay, that's a long history. So we've got the Christian connection, even though some people might not consider Catholicism Christianity. I'll leave that debate to the side. It's in the history, even though you don't see it in the Hollywood movies. You don't even see it. I think the closest we come to it is Oliver Stone, who did a Vietnam War movie from the point of view of Vietnamese people. How revolutionary. And then, of course, you got the Dutch East India Company and later the British East India Company, who were, very early on trying to probe and penetrate this part of the world. And they managed to subjugate one of the two largest civilizations in that part of the world, one being India, which the British got, and the Chinese or China. So one of the ironies here, before I go on here, because I'm not going to point the finger in one direction, because we're talking about power, right? And power doesn't have a nationality. Power doesn't have a race. Power doesn't have an ethnicity. Power doesn't have a gender, right? So cool it with that one group is responsible for everything, all our problems in the world. Want to talk about usury? In preparation for this talk, this is another talk altogether, but just so you know, I was looking up usury in China. Man, there's tons of articles about it. I was looking usury in Meiji Japan, pre-modern Japan. How did Japan become a superpower, right? Economically? Well, they taxed everybody out of you. That's how my family came to America, because they were being screwed over by the usurers and they were Japanese. All right. That's how people lost their livelihood, their fields, their homes, and whatever. And that's it's called usury, and it's universal. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it's universal. So grow up and adapt or adjust or fight it. Reform it. It's out of control now, and it's really destroying American society. It's destroying the usurers along with it. So let me just kind of show you a little bit about the contemporary. Let's see my little book here of the new, because I remember I was talking about the Chinese being beaten up and robbed and exploited and then excluded. The Chinese Exclusion Act 1882, the Oriental Exclusion Act 1994. The Hart-Celler Act opened up immigration to Asia. That's why you saw a sudden influx of Asians around 65 and on, because that's when it was passed. And that's why you see the huge, large population, depending on where you live, influx. There's a history behind it, right? So now we see the irony of the environs of the Pasadena Rose Parade. And this is why I'm predicting the next Rose Queen will be Chinese. And by that, I can mean either mainland, Hong Kong, Taiwanese, American, though. They're going to have to be, maybe not ABC, American-born Chinese, but they can be of the Chinese diaspora. Might be South Asian. They might split the difference. And because the South Asians, because of the British imperial background, and they have cuter accents, are somehow more acceptable to the American audience, right? They look less chinky, right, than the East Asian people, even though they're typically browner. And as I said, if you're white, you're all right. You're brown, stick around. You're black, stay back. And by the way, I say this because they are very self-conscious about that themselves. And your East Asian people tend not to be very dark. Okay, so let's look at the contemporary. And I know this work, not intimately, but I know I was. I had students like this coming in my class in the last few years that I was at UC Davis. I had students who were like driving late model, brand new BMWs. They were driving brand new Audis, expensive German automobiles. And I had I have the same car. It's a Honda Civic. Although it is a rice rocket, it's a standard transmission with overhead cam. It's a performance vehicle, but it's not a BMW or a Porsche. So this is San Gabriel Valley. Okay, just so you know that I'm looking at this ritual and this transformation is being global in nature. Although we're focusing on the Rose Parade right here, just a very glimpse. Here's the current generation. These are the descendants, and they're oblivious to it. They're ignorant of the earlier history. They could care less. They're just having a good party, right? And check this out. Check this scene out. This is an opener for you.
Say that you a baller. You lame, can't play this game. Step up to the plate, cause you say that you a baller.
We are here at a supercar meet in the San Gabriel Valley, and these are some of the most exotic cars I've ever seen. And the people who own these cars are probably younger than me.
Say that you a baller.
That's my car.
Oh, okay, no, very, very nice. How much is this car?
Brand new, like 270,000.
Say that you a baller.
I have a 3 Ferrari. This is my newest one.
Why did you pick this car?
I just study in California, and this car's name is California. Very romantic.
There are 235,000 students from mainland China attending American high schools and universities. Some are children of the wealthy elite who hold private meetups where they can discreetly flaunt their love of status symbols. Vocative found a subculture of these rich students in California who have bonded over their super luxury cars. They use the Chinese language app WeChat. We got invited to one of their meetups, but didn't know what to expect. The Chinese government is touchy about people seeing how the children of the elite live, so they try to keep a relatively low profile. Can you tell us about your car? What kind of car you have?
Yes, I just bought it like last month. It's also 2014 Bentley Continental GT.
你是喜欢红色吗？
Okay, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The iron law of oligarchy at work, right? They're Chinese. All right, has nothing to do with nationality. It's oligarchy. Has nothing to do with religion, race, or whatever. If you got the money and and we got to ask the question, where's all that dough coming from, right? That's another talk. By the way, when I'm watching this stuff, I say, well, those kids there, they don't know how to spend their money. So I'm gonna have to go in there and say, listen, we're going to create a certain structure here. You're going to be able to put some of that money into a university where you're really going to get your money's worth, right? 4-year undergraduate education, and it's going to build up status. Because Caltech was not even a prestige institution until the late 30s when they got Theodor von Karman to come to Caltech. I'll talk more about that. So we're going to start modestly, and they're going to take all that money that they're wasting on automobiles, and they're going to invest it in this 4-year undergraduate and graduate institution that I will found, because I already gave you the model, right? It's going to be named after the famous Vietnamese dish called pho. So it'll be called Pho U for short. All right. Got it. My name is Shlomo Hamamoto. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. No, there's more. There's more. There's more to this shtick. All right. But anyway, by the way, I'm just kind of parroting what really goes on amongst the ultra wealthy. Where do they put their money? They put it in education. They put it at Caltech. They invented Caltech so that they could create this biophysical, bioeugenics slave empire of 2023. You see what I'm doing here? I'm not stupid. I'm not a clown. I'm the smartest man in the room. They got to get with me. I think they wouldn't understand me. By the way, I told you I had these students here and I got to know them very well. And I was already talking up these different plans. They were listening very closely. And these are the ones who are going to have power. 'Cause most of them are going to stay here in the US. Most of them have already bought homes for their parents, for their families in San Marino, right? Where all the rich people live, right? Or Altadena or old Pasadena. It's expensive to live in Pasadena. That's it's well known. It's one of the high rent areas of Los Angeles County. I mean, there's some working class areas as well, but it's not cheap. So anyway, that's another talk altogether. So I'm thinking along all these different levels, these victims of the past, like these people here.
And so did everybody else. So it wasn't out of the ordinary.
I thought it was tough. It was unfair. I mean, because my friends in town, they go, "Hey Glenn, what do you want to do? You want to do something this weekend?" And they're doing checking out movies or doing this and that. Yeah, you're out there working. So, but did it help me in the future? Yeah, I think it did because I don't mind them working. If it's something needs to get done.
Yeah. So the kids who are rocking the Lamborghinis and the Porsches in the San Gabriel Valley do not understand, nor do they really need to. I'm not guilt tripping them, but what you just saw there is more like my background. That's why I have to, and I'm telling you this because I'm not one of those bourgeois FOB types fresh off the boat. Okay, I'm not one of those bourgeois types who came in Silicon Valley in the 70s who now have positions at Bard College and write for the New Yorker magazine, right? I'm not part of that cohort of Amy Chua, whose father was a scientist. I'm not. I'm ghetto. I come from the old part of the underclass part of LA. Just so you know that we come from different backgrounds, and that accounts for my critical and my critical perceptions and also my bad attitude. Because we're not going to let any of this stuff go down, right? If whatever you call them, Chi-Coms, say they're welding all the people behind closed doors because of the so-called Wuhan flu, right? No, we're not gonna put up with that type of garbage because it's just a repeat of what we've seen over and over again, Rose Parade or not. Okay, just very briefly, here is it's now mostly Latino, right? Immigrant Latino peoples who have moved into the flower trade, the cut flower trade, which was founded by Japanese Americans, Issei. These were the growers you just saw. Here's the retail end of it.
In this video, we check out the original Los Angeles Flower Market, which is celebrating their 100th anniversary, next on Jaycation. What's up, Jaycationers? Welcome back to the first video in the Los Angeles series. Today I am here in the Los Angeles Flower District, and this is the Los Angeles Flower Market, the original flower market, which is celebrating their 100th anniversary. And today I have a special guest. This is my friend Amanda. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to explore.
And you got your flower dress on today?
Yes, ready.
And I got my red roses on.
Okay, just to let you know, they're oblivious to the fact that they call it the new flower market, but it's not. It's old, and it was founded not by Latinos, but by Asiaticos, right? Japanese in specific. Okay, let's get back to the Tournament of Roses. Now that you got some of the deeper history under your belt here, this complex. I wanted to come up with a memorable name for it, what they're trying to sell here. I'm talking about the people who are out of the Wrigley Mansion, the Tournament of Roses planning staff, what they've been doing for the last 132 years. And I call it Edenic occultism. Write that down, Edenic occultism. And that's this notion of recreating the Garden of Eden. It doesn't have to be literal or even figurative. It's like an imaginary state of utopian state, right? Pre-fall, pre the fall of man, because of our sin, right? But it's an Edenic occultism. It's an Edenic world, a Edenic utopia that was very much, I think, part of the consciousness of the aforementioned group from from the Midwest, from the Indiana part of the Midwest that came to settle there, and subsequent groups, right? And they trace their heritage, I'm convinced of it, to, and they might not be aware of it consciously. And by the way, there are free Masonic lodges in Pasadena. And in fact, I'm getting some literature. I ordered it over the holidays. And I want to read up on their own publications, right? Coming right out of either South Pasadena or Pasadena. There's another municipality right next to Pasadena called South Pasadena, but I'm talking about them. I'm conflating them. But the point is that whether they know it or not, they are intellectually, culturally, and in terms of their own sense of social and political, economic leadership and entitlement to that type of leadership, hereditary bloodline leadership, it comes right out of the Freemasonic handbook. And before that, or subsequent to that, Royal Society. That's why it made its way into my title here, right? Ruled by Royal Society. And that's, you think you know about it because you heard about John Dee, right? And you thought, well, that's all well and dandy, and it helped advance technology and all these great inventions and revolutions and communication and transportation and medicine. Yeah, fine and dandy. But there's the esoteric part of it. It also consolidated and maintained and advanced political economic hegemony over we mud people. And that's people of all races and ethnicities who don't fit this profile of this particular bloodlines. Now, this particular bloodlines who might claim either implicitly, and most of them don't even know their own history, their own intellectual history, their own metaphysical history, but it comes from Rose+Croix, right? This is a good book by Milko Bogard, who I don't know anything about, but this is about Josephine Péladan. He was the founder of the French Rose+Croix, pardon my pronunciation, or Rosicrucian, in English. So there is that tradition, and it migrated overseas. It migrated to the Midwest, and it was transplanted in, guess where? Pasadena, California, which not coincidentally is also where there's a lot of Theosophical Society activity. It's not the world headquarters. I think that's in the Midwest someplace. But they touched down in places like La Jolla, Pasadena, and as I mentioned before, up in Santa Barbara and further up. I'm talking about just California area. Pasadena is one of their bastions, and that's where it's played out there. So where do the roses come in, right? Well, look at the court here. These are the queens. These are the queen bees. And by the way, one of the agenda items that I have here is to post, if you want, tell me in the comments, articles that will be good for your, if you have a student in college right now or the university or a grandchild in there, this would make a great research paper, because that's always the number one. What do I write about? I don't know. Well, this is exciting. This is about, the Da Vinci Code. This is about the Knights Templar. This is about the Rose Garden. It's about the Pasadena Rose Bowl. There's queens. There's rice rockets. High-end automobile. It's got everything. Flowers. It's, men, women, doesn't matter. It's a great topic. So, but they'll also learn that there's a secret language that these elites are using. They're communicating through the language of flowers. They're communicating through the paralanguage, the meta-communication system of horticulture. And it goes down to the Rose+Croix. That's their symbol, the rose and the cross. And the people, the early flower breeders, the people who are hybridizing the roses that eventually resulted in the American Beauty, a name which was co-opted for a perverted movie, right, starring one and only Kevin Spaced Out. Right? It was a Frenchman. And I'm sure, I haven't found it yet, but I'm almost certain he was a Rosicrucian. He was initiated into these arts, the arts of hybridity, of transmutation, of alchemy, of mixture, right? Turning base metal into gold. Or in the case of Caltech, taking chunks of uranium and transforming it into nuclear weapons that will destroy millions of people. And then beyond that, biophysically modifying their genetic structure, which was the aftermath. I mean, I think it was already part of the plan, the bombs, right? Atom bombs, hydrogen. It was already part of the plan to hit us at the genetic level. That was just sort of the external, we're measuring the external impact on the Japanese people, right? So we can study them and know what we're dealing with. But then, we'll move beyond that and we'll just go right into the genetic code, which was coming out of Caltech. All right. I'm running out of time, so let me skip to one of the main figures, because part of my efforts here for the past 2 years was to add new names to the list, so you don't keep talking about Wende von Braun or whoever, Edward Teller, right? All these immigrants from the Austro-Hungarian Empire who migrated to the U.S., all the sexy Nazis, all the paperclip. All right, this guy was not a Nazi. He was not even German. He was a Quaker, I think, but he was part of the Congregationalist elite or the Protestant elite. Okay, what is his name? His name was Charles Frederick Holder. Look him up. Charles Frederick Holder. Can we add another name to the list of people who have been destroying our life, our civilization biogenetically, who came out of Caltech, which is housed in Pasadena? And can we, let us read about Jack Parsons and the sexy Rocketeers and OTO and the Great Beast, Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard and science. Yeah, okay, it's fun. We'll read it, okay? But don't think that that's where it ended, right? That stuff is just now being repeated and thrown out there with courtesy of a bunch of pop-up pundit wannabes to keep us from the real issues of human survival here. So this is a name that you need to know about, Charles Frederick Holder. Look him up. I don't have time, but man, he was a bad piece of work. And he was one of the presidents of the Pasadena Tournament of Roses, which is to my point. It underscores my point about this hybridity and this control and this godlike attempt to supplant the supreme being God, right? I haven't checked him out, but I'm going to see if he has some sort of formal affiliation with the Rosicrucians, the AMORC, the Ancient Mystical Order of Rosicrucians. Their headquarters are right here in Silicon Valley in San Jose, with their little garden there. That's not a coincidence, right? By Elon Musk's office, right? I think it's part of and just as Pasadena was situated by Caltech. You got the AMRC in Silicon Valley, also close to Stanford. You get the point. So check this guy out. I don't have time to really go into his history because I wanted to also talk about some positive developments in recent times. And it's thanks to people like me, by the way. I'm not taking sole credit for it, but like I said, I've been studying this and putting it in the curriculum and lecturing and publishing it since 2005 after I came back from my Shemitah, or my sabbatical, the Sabbath. And one of the names that you need to know is Robert A. Millikan. And when I was growing up, there was a Millikan High School. He was that important that he had schools named after him. It was in Long Beach. It was also a regional athletics powerhouse. I think it's, but it's probably changed its name because you know what? Here's the good news. Because of the efforts of people like me who have been studying the history of eugenics and challenging all the academic feminists who were focusing on lifestyle and lesbian and gay identity, I said, no, Margaret Sanger, your patron saint, the persons that you are promoting to your own students as academic feminists who are sterilizing now the human race. It's thanks to me going against these people who were ratting me out and were telling the lesbian administration of University of California. I mentioned they're lesbian because there is a very strong, well-organized lesbianic mafia in higher education, and they were there. And you know me, I don't take shit from anybody. Man, female, woman, whoever, Nazis, nobody Okay, that's my bloodline, and they know that. Okay, so they had to deal with me. That's another story. All right. So what's happening? Milliken, not Milken. That's another jerkwad. Robert Milliken's name is being taken off of these institutions. He had a building named after him at Caltech. He was the president of Cal. He was one of the main architects of. It used to be called Throop College, and then I told you it was an infusion of big money. Just like I'm going to get big money from those Chinese kids who are rocking the big, $200,000-$300,000 luxury automobiles. They're going to put it through my machine, and I'm going to make it grow, right? And I'm going to help them gain true political, economic power. All right, because that's how it's done in America and most of the world. I'm just repeating the formula here. It's all perfectly legal. How do you think Bankman-Fried got a hold of all that money, honey? It's being run out of Stanford University. So I'm not really telling you anything unorthodox or any wild pipe dream. It's the truth. Okay, so let me leave off with Robert Milliken. He, at the behest, again, it's all about the money. He got together with the Guggenheim family. Does that ring a bell? Yeah, Guggenheim, as in museum, as in Peggy Guggenheim was so rich she lived like an Italian marchioness in Venice, with her famed, storied art. Even though she claimed to be part of the poor side of the family, that Guggenheim, and they were in the mining industry. Most German Jews of the time made their nut through finance. The Guggenheims were making it out of money, right? Copper, all the precious metals and minerals and raw materials, as they call it, to help fund the industrialization, the urbanization of America, right? So, as farsighted as they were, they took a bit of their stack and they gave it to Robert Millikan and said, let's start something called Caltech. Freudian error there. Okay, Caltech. And then we're going to really capture the world. We're going to call it the bioeugenics universe. And then we're going to fund the Rose+Croix to act as a civic ritual reenactment of our power. And we're going to throw it in the face of the entire world. All right, so that's how I understand the Pasadena Tournament of Roses. And it's a tournament where we're the knaves and they are the knights. We are the pawns in the grand chessboard. At least they think we are, because they think we're stupid. We think we're just smashing Cheetos in our face and washing it down with Coors beer. But I see a lot of people in the live stream here. I know you're not of that ilk. And I know there's going to be thousands of people that watch this video because you're going to share it. And you're also going to join my Patreon. And we're all going to rise together because this knowledge is seeping out. It's not seeping out, it's spilling out. We know about Robert Millikan. He was a eugenicist. That's why they're taking his name off the buildings. That's why they took his name off the research center at Caltech. And it's happening all over the country. They did it with the Sackler family, who invented the opioid crisis through Purdue Pharma here in the U.S. It was not the Chi-Coms with their fentanyl. Yeah, they were a big part of the problem, but who laid the foundation through the pharmaceutical business, through prescriptions? It's the steaming sack of Sacklers that did it. Okay. So check out Robert Millikan and his contribution. I have it all laid out. And then finally, if you allow me just a couple more minutes, Pasadena, not coincident. And this underscores my whole idea about the hybridization of the American rose and trying to mediate power. You've got your Rosicrucian, Knights Templar, Freemasonic establishment in old Pasadena, the power center of Los Angeles, and maybe arguably the state of California. Elon Musk is a newbie. All those guys, Bezos, they're newbie. We're talking about older wealth that started like in the mid-19th century, right? Which is not old in terms of America, but for California, yes. You're looking at Silicon Valley. You're looking at Hollywood. No, I say look at Pasadena. That's why my historiography is revolutionary because I'm going right to the core of the occultic basis of power, not just in Los Angeles, not just in California, but the United States of America. All right, so let me just leave off with one final morsel for you to chew on. Pasadena is also the city wherein an organization was formed in 1880. And their whole idea was to purify their Edenic utopia of the red, the brown, and the black, and also the Catholics and the Jews, right? They're not either black or red or brown, but they're not congregational. They're not Presbyterians, right? So we got to get rid of them, or at least keep them in bay, right? So we're going to get rid of them, and we got a big Oriental problem. We got too many Chinamen here. We got too many Japanese. They're excelling. They're creating industry. They're creating agriculture in Central California, Southern California, right? These are poor peasant people. They're fishermen. They're excelling. They're starting to go to our public schools. We got to do something, right? So they tried all the legislative, all the legal remedies. They used the military, you name it. But they also had to have an ideological foundation, right? These people who were threatened, they were xenophobic, right? Asiaphobic. So what did they call? And they had all the best minds, including people like Professor Robert Millikan. Right? All them Caltech guys, in other words, the people with all the big science. By the way, that's where all the big science comes from. It comes from all these evil geniuses who wanted to purify the world from all its contaminants. And they didn't mean material contaminants. They talk about human contaminants, which is you and me. So what did they call their organization? And I'll leave you with this to think about. This is 1880 now, and I got all the documents, and I'm going to post some of them on the Patreon, so your son and daughter or grandson and granddaughter can download it and write this incredible paper for their class, and the TA is going to go, oh my God, this is great. And then have them use some buzzwords from critical race theory, like racism or anti-immigrant. they'll eat it up. So they'll be benefited from me. And also you're educating the dumbass teaching assistant, right? Who has just been learning CRT and GLBTQ. They don't really know anything. They don't know this. So what is the name of this organization that brought it all together and is really the seed bed, if I can use the horticultural analogy one more time? What was the organization that prepared the seed? That was the seed bed for what I've been talking about for the past 60 minutes? Yes, they were called the Human Betterment Foundation. Wow. They were right up front about it back in the day, were they not? The Human Betterment Foundation. And it went all the way up to 1945, 1880 to 1945. And if you want to check their archives, if you are of a scholarly researcher bent, there's 28 linear feet, that is 59 boxes of documents from the Human Betterment Foundation that are housed at Caltech, their library, their special collections library. So the scholarship's been done. It's all there, right? But people are, in our community of independent researchers and thinkers are locked into UFOs and sexy Nazis. And the academic world has been purposely diverted into GLBTQ and CRT. But I'm saying it's changing. It's changing very, very quickly. The public's fed up. Students are fed up. Even the academics are somewhat getting, the ones who are, who are not on the verge of retirement, they're not going to change, are fed up and they're looking for something new. And all they have to do is watch this channel, this particular piece, and they'll forget all about Jordan Peterson. He is such a lightweight. Anyway, that's my New Year's farewell to 2022. Maybe I'll be as big as him one day. I'll be a big bloviator, a big fraud. Maybe I'll have representation from creative arts like he does. He's got CAA representation, and I don't even have 11,000 subscribers, but that's okay. They're all quality subscribers are not a bunch of ass clowns, right? A number of whom were making comments, disparaging comments on my talk, not against me, but against Rabbi Khan, right? Those are the tourists. My subscribers, my supporters here on Patreon. I want to take this time to thank you for your support for the past 2 years. I hope you feel that you are rewarded or thanked through this talk of today, because if you really assimilate it, and I know you will, and you listen to it a couple times with your kids or whoever your relatives, you're going to take kernels away from it that's going to continue the erosion of this hegemonic bioeugenic program that's been visited upon us. You understand? And it's been done very carefully and slyly by none other than the Pasadena tournament of Rosicrucians. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you peace for 2023, good health, prosperity. And I'm also additionally, especially excited because in another hour, I'm going to be with my friend and colleague, John O'Loughlin. I'm going to pick his brains about William and Mary College, which is an early example of this whole power complex that I've been talking about today for the past 60 minutes. It's all around us. It's hidden in plain sight. All right. So we'll see you next year. Thank you very much. Bye.